Boy.
Hey, Jessica,
Yeah.
before you go,
Okay.
is there any way to get like my picture with these images, or is it just, am I just sharing the images with like a voiceover?
No, you will be
You know
visible.
what I'm saying?
You'll be visible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
'Cause
right.
I
Okay.
rewatched the recording with Deb, and I'm pretty sure that when I watched it, I saw her video,
Okay.
but you might have had a different experience. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, Christina says she can see me, so okay, cool. All right.
Oh, I see what you mean. Um, if
Yes.
anyone cannot see Brent, it's because you might have clicked on hide thumbnail video, and then you can choose to only see Brent with show small active speaker video, or you can choose like gallery or two people, and you would just have to find your participants. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And can people see this image? There's like a little couple guys up there with the
Yes.
with cool. Okay. Awesome. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to ArtBreak. My name is Brent, Brent Harris. I am the current head of the sculpture department at the KIA. And so what I'm going to do here is just show, tell you a little bit about me, kind of go through some of the work that I've done and the work that I'm doing now. So if anyone had, I would like this to be more of a conversation. So it's not really a direct lecture. It's really more of a conversation. So you guys, please feel free to interrupt me. Feel free to pipe up, and let's just have this be a chat. Sound cool?
Sounds cool.
All right. So the first image I'm showing. So let me see. I got my degree. I got my BFA from Western in '94. After that, I apprenticed for a while at the Alchemist Sculpture Foundry. Actually, it's the Alchemist Thai Sculpture Foundry at the time. Bill and Carla Thai owned the place. I worked there for a while, and I got to make my bronzes, make my art, continue doing that. But at the time, I didn't want to go to grad school. It really wasn't for me. I really wanted to work in the community. So what I did was I thought I'd be going to medicine. So I was a paramedic for, gosh, probably 7 years. Still making art in the back of the ambulance, sitting in the back of Lowe's parking lot, just working on my waxes, and then I would go down and get them cast at the Alchemist Foundry. Eventually, when I was getting pretty burned out as a paramedic on the streets, at that time, Bill and Carla came to me and they asked me if I wanted to buy the foundry, and I was like, hell yes, this is perfect. So I did. And me and my partner, Brett Kuipers, at the time, we bought it and we ran the place for, well, he left, I think, probably after 7 years. And then I finished up and we ran it for about 50, I ran it for about 15 years. So the first picture is me and Brett pulling the crucible out of the foundry. Okay. So yeah, so we're going to start with some of the work that I did. This is pretty foundational for me. That's why I'm starting it here. A lot of this is in my work specifically. We're going to get into that. But I would like to talk about the bronze casting process because it's very integral to what I do. I've worked with bronze since college. I love it. I love the fire. I love that most of the work we do is figurative, and that's always been my joy and my love. When I was at Western, I started out as a painter until it was never any good. And Joe DeLuca knew that, and he said, "Look, you're not painting. You're trying to sculpt. You know, I see you sculpting here. Have you ever taken sculpture before?" It's like, "Oh no." So I went over and I learned from Al Laverne. I learned this is what I want to do. I want to make things. So that what I was doing was, instead of painting, I was forming things two-dimensionally. And I realized what I need to do is step back a little bit and actually make that happen. So anyway, so I started making my own figurative work, and I started the foundry. And this way, what I'm going to show you here is, this is a picture of Carlton Fisk, And this is, I think, one of the early ones I did, working big life-size pieces. And it was really nice because it did combine my love of painting. So I was able to bring color into sculpture. So I was really proud of this piece. I love the patina. When we do bronze, what we do is when I do patinas, it's a hot chemical process. So you heat the piece up, get it scorching hot, you spray different chemicals to get different colors. And then on top of that, I add different pigments to this piece in particular to kind of give it what's called what do you call them? Like a tin soldier, those old tin soldiers, like those antiques. So this has kind of an old fashioned sort of effect to it. Okay. Here's another example of work I'm proud of. This is something that I did. That's the classic patina with the skins of Scottie Pippen, obviously the Chicago Bulls. This one I was experimenting with the real classic acid patinas, but then combined it with this real modern sort of reflective alcohol dye. So, he's more of a modern player, so I wanted that modern look. And so that's something I brought to it. These pieces, and most of the pieces I'm going to show you were commissions from the Timeless Creations in Chicago. And we did a lot of work for them. We did works for the Bulls, the Red Wings, a lot of Chicago Cubs, White Sox, just everything you can imagine. A lot of LA Lakers. So that's sort of the work we were doing. And I was really proud to sort of bring these colors because I think we were a foundry that they stuck with because I was able to add some of that really dynamic color that they hadn't seen before. This is a piece we did, the LA Kings. This is white bronze, and white bronze is real interesting, and that's something that very few people work with because it's real difficult to work with as this scale. White bronze is also called white tombasil, TOMB, and I think it's TOMB tomb because it was used to make like plaques outside of tombs. It's really kind of cool because most bronze is 96% copper, which is where you get those beautiful, colorful patinas, but it also oxidizes and turns green. This white bronze doesn't. Most people, when they do it, unfortunately, it turns like a really dull pewter color, but we are able to perfect this process and polish them up so they're this really gorgeous, shiny, like white gold. So yeah. Another reason people don't work with it is it just welds like crap. It's horrible. Structurally, it's really difficult to work with. Silicon bronze, you weld it, it's like butter, everything flows together. This, you weld it and it just collapses on you. You can't weld it. It's a nightmare. So this piece, it took forever. I spent a lot of 24 hours down at the foundry welding on cold concrete in my back at 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to get this thing done. But yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's a really lovely piece. And I think, like you said, someone said the dynamic movement. That's one thing that Timeless Creations was known for. Omri and Ronnie, we've had lots of talks about movement and time, and he's a real thinker, and he really likes to express time through his works. And I think this is a good example of that.
Where is that located now?
Oh, this is in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the LA Kings. So this is, I want to say it's at the Staples Center because I think the Staples Centers, they do basketball and hockey. Okay. So yeah, there's going to be a few more pieces that are at the Staples Center. This is Ernie Banks. This is again one of those classic tin soldier types, patinas, very antique looking.
Brent.
Yeah.
The Chicago Bull statue.
Uh-huh.
Was the red paint or? The red
is a dye. It's a special metal dye, that can be very translucent, and it's real reflective. So what I would do is I would go underneath the bronze, I would polish it so it was super reflective, and then put on this alcohol dye basically. And then when the light hits it, the light goes through the the dye hits that polished bronze and reflects outwards. So when the lights hit it, it's pretty dazzling.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I really like that one a lot. It's pretty neat. I like the contrast. So Ernie Banks. Shirley wants to know about the process of casting that is so precise. Can you tell me more about that? You can speak up if you like, but casting is a very precise process. It can be. We can get a lot of fine detail, like the molds we get. If we make a mold, we can get fingerprints that transfer from the original piece through the mold making process and into the bronze itself. So we can get really fine detail. And it's up to us, once we weld the piece together, everything gets jumbled, the heat gets jumbled, can jumble up the texture, and it's up to us to bring that texture back with fine tools and a lot of hard work and sweat. This is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in process in the foundry. And this is the work and the man. So again, that's that. This is also that highly reflective. This is that dye. I did a lot of painting work with this one. Worked a lot with shadows and light and reflectivity with this to really make it look very modern.
Is that the dye on the socks and shoes, or is that a different metal?
It's a combo. Yeah, it's a combo. The dye, a lot of the dye is in the yellows and the purples. I also work with a lot of acrylic paint. So I figured out how to sort of like dilute acrylic paint, still heat the metal, and then dab acrylic paint on while the metal's hot, and then makes the paint adhere to the metal. So it's not like painting. It's still like patina work, but it's with pigments. So it's paint, acrylic dye, or the dye stains, and traditional hot metal patina, acid patinas.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. This one is Shaquille O'Neal in process. One of the things that Omri from Timeless Creations in Chicago used to do was send us, he had these fantastic ideas of work. He would just be like, Brent, I have this great idea. And he would have this Shaquille O'Neal hanging from a basketball hoop, and he would draw it up, and he would present it to the Lakers. And then they would be like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then he would give it to us. And I was like, this is structurally impossible. It's going to weigh like 1,000 pounds, and he's going to be hanging 7 feet above a walkway. But he's like, well, it's too late. We already contracted it out, and they agreed to it. So figure it out. So that was also what I love to do, is figuring stuff out. And that's what we did. So this piece at this point, you can see it's kind of hard to see, but he's holding on to the rim. But inside it, there's these big stainless steel bars, and those bars go through his forearms, into his upper arms, and attach in a network, like a skeleton of stainless steel bars welded inside his shoulders and back. So he's just built like a dump truck inside, so he can support all that weight. You can see like up on top, those up by the basketball hoop, that's where it attaches to the side of the building. Yeah. This is Omri over here in the plaid shirt. Somewhere online, I think, there's a late night talk show. He did a piece for Beckham, the soccer player, David Beckham, and they did a parody of Omri. He's Israeli and has this great accent, and they had an actor portraying Omri, and they did this fantastic piece that was like David Beckham had this giant butt, and his face was just distorted. Anyway, it was really funny, but he's quite a character. Anyway, so this is us painting on the piece, and this is the piece, and Shaq. This is another example of what Omri would do. Draw this piece, he'd give them this drawing. Everybody would think it's fantastic, and I would look at it going, oh my God, this is 800 pounds of metal on a 45-degree angle on a base that's the size of a dinner plate. How am I going to make this structurally work? And I did. So at this point in the foundry was really just taking a nosedive. The Bronze Age has been going on for like 4,000 years, and I decided to buy a foundry at like the last 10 years of its collapse. We started losing a lot of, they started losing contracts. A lot of galleries are closing. We just weren't getting the work. So at this point, when we started this, it was just me and another person, and then who did some of the extraneous work to keep things going, but mostly the construction on this was just me in the studio. So it was a real learning experience, that's for sure. A lot of work. We really got our money's worth out of this crane, twisting this piece back and forth, around, up and down. So yeah, this is Elgin Baylor, and this is him in person. Again, the structure was down through the base, ton of stainless steel. Like we would build it in sections. So it was built like the leg, the feet, then the lower leg, the knees, and then we would just sort of stack it up Lego style in pieces and build it upwards. Meantime, building a stainless steel infrastructure all the way up through the body, through the legs, into the hips, all the way up. So, at no point when I was building this did it ever stand up. It was always on its side. So when it stood up, it was always just the tensest moment in the world. Just, I delivered it, and I just had to pray to God that it did not collapse and kill somebody. So, and in the meantime, I got to make my own work. This is Earl Warren, E.K. Warren, of Warren Dunes fame. He bought up the Lakeshore and then Michigan, and then made a little national park in his name. So, big conservationist at the time. I learned a lot while working for Omri. I learned a lot about the figure, to do detailed figurative work. This is Charlie Marr. This is up at Western Michigan. Bust for him. This is The Gatherer. Some people might have seen this. Is out in Hastings right now. One of the things about public art is, this is a big learning experience for me. I love this piece. It was very emotionally, it meant a lot to me. It's The Gatherer. So for me, this piece, when I was building it, he is the gatherer that creates the universe. Inside his body, inside the chest and stomach, it's like a swirling cosmos. I made the texture so it looks like it was, the world was still forming. And then in his hands, he's, I was doing Tai Chi at the time, so he's making his little Chi ball, creating the energy of the universe. So to me, it had, he was like an ancient figure. I pictured him in this somber setting in a gallery, and people would look at him with, this somber respect and understand what I was saying and really get it on an emotional level. And it took him an art prize, and people started sticking their head inside. And this is the reaction. So at first I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? This is, you don't get it. But then I realized, once you put things out in the world, it becomes its own thing. And I love that. People come to Hastings right now. The city of Hastings bought this piece, and they just have a ball with it. I saw somebody on Reddit the other day said, yeah, I drive by that piece every day, and it's, I drove by it one day and it scared the shit out of me. So, I think part of being an artist is being able to let go. That's for sure. This is Eric Zapata. This was downtown Kalamazoo, speaking of letting go. And this is his mom. Eric was a police officer in Kalamazoo, and he was shot and killed in line of duty. I knew Eric, not personally, but he was on the streets when I was working as a paramedic. So I knew him from work. So it was my honor to take on this project. When the police department asked me, they wanted a piece for their central station, and I said, well, I don't think that's a great idea, because there can be a rift sometimes, or a disconnect between the police department and the community, that the community. And how about we put him, front and center downtown Kalamazoo, someplace public, because how about we present him as a father and as a citizen first. So they agreed to that, and it was really wonderful. I loved working with those guys. They felt comfortable knowing me, knowing that I was kind of one of them, so to speak. So that felt good. And I felt good doing it. He was located initially at the north end of the mall in Kalamazoo. The title of it's Keeping Watch. And so wanted a piece that was, it's just Eric keeping watch over the city. He was just, he was one of us. He was a father, it was outside of Burdick's, which was his favorite bar. And so anyway, so that was the piece. And I stayed there for years until this last summer, after the BLM marches, the Black Lives Matter marches, the George Floyd protests, when KDPS took it upon themselves to remove the piece and take it back to their central location. It had been damaged earlier, the year prior. Contrary to what a lot of people at MLive speculated about, it wasn't because of Antifa. It was just because some drunk kid decided to leapfrog it, and when he was drunk, and knocked it over. It was just an accident. But because KDPS was so concerned about vandalism, they took it away, and they asked me if I could clean it up for them, and I declined. Because I just didn't think it was appropriate to do something like that without telling the city what had happened. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't know what happened because they never announced it publicly. And so in the void, in the gap, a lot of negative feedback came online. People thought, it'd been vandalized by BLM and Antifa, and things got pretty ugly. So. Anyway, like I said, once you make something, you put it out there, you just have to let go. Ironically, it was interesting. When I made this, I gave a presentation alongside of direct alongside in the same program as Amy Waldman, who wrote a book called The Submission, and her book was about public art. It was a fictional book about 9/11 memorial that was created by a Middle Eastern man, and all the turmoil and the fallout, the political fallout and the social upheaval that happened when people found out that he was of Middle Eastern descent. And so I talked a lot about public art and my experience doing this, and it's just kind of ironic that this all ended up that way. Kind of unfortunate. So. Does anyone have any questions?
Hello. Do you do a full-size mock-up of each of these pieces, like out of some material, clay or whatever?
Yeah. I'll show you actually. That's I think that's literally what's coming next. So yeah, I'll show you that process. I got asked to do a commission piece for a dancer. It's called We Dance for Joy. And so this is the process. This is what you're asking. So what I do is, this is pretty common. The armature you can see here is made out of gas pipe. You can see in her lower leg and her shoulder. And so I make a skeleton. I make a maquette initially, and then I scale it up just using math. It's like 1/4 scale. And I take calipers and do direct measurement to make the skeleton. Once I've got the skeleton mocked up, and then I start adding what you see here is just insulation foam. I just put it on in sections, glue it together, fill the gap with that expanding insulating foam, and then just start carving it back again, going back to the original, taking the calipers and using those measurements. I make a slightly smaller version because I'm going to add a layer of clay over top of it. Just be welding it back, welding it together, welding her shoulders on. You can see the maquette in the background here. So that's what I reference. And I start slapping the clay on. I just heat the clay up a little bit so it's fairly malleable. And I can, I want to get it so it's almost liquid, and I trowel it on with a spatula, and then let it harden, start carving it back. So that's usually the process. All those sports figures that they did, that this is how they did it. A lot of gas pipe, welding, foam. So it's pretty light. It's a real thin layer of clay. I don't end up using a lot of clay. The clay all gets recycled. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Yeah. And so then eventually, this is her finished in clay. Eventually this gets, it got rubber molded. I painted with latex rubber mold in sections. We put like a plaster casing on top of that, a mother mold, and then into that pour wax, and then that's the whole bronze casting process, which could take that's a whole nother lecture in and of itself. And this is her finished. So I did this one 2019. Yeah. Pat, you're muted if you had a question.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Where is she located?
She's in Taylor.
Okay.
Yeah. Joy is, she's 90 years old. She's just retiring, and she literally just retiring from teaching dance. And she literally is a joy, just loved by the community. She started her own dance company in her home, and that expanded out to become this entire arts center. And so they wanted to honor her. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Just a couple of my pieces. This one, just an example of the work I do in bronze, Diluvian woman. So my work isn't always so precise, formal. I do that work for commissions, but this is kind of more my style. A little more manneristic, a little more emotional. A lot of twists. Oops, sorry. A lot of twists and turns. I'm really motivated by around the S curves. The whole Fibonacci spiral that you hear so much about. That's, you can see it everywhere in my work. That's my go-to. This piece again, it's all about the spirals. It's all about working in the round. I think sculpture needs to work in the round. That's why it exists. I think a piece should work from every angle you look at it. And that's my goal with my work. If there's an angle that you look at and it just sort of is, it dies, then it's to me, it's not as effective. And I think that's it's like a mathematical problem for me to get that to work, and sometimes you have to take some deviate from the anatomy, to make the overall aesthetic work. So this is mother and child. I also like to work in contrast. I like the masculine to mix masculine and feminine. This one is a study in contrast. You look at one part of it, she has these masculine sort of qualities, very protective, and that is sort of like the manifestation of that, sort of like the feminine, the maternalistic, protective nature. And so she's holding her baby in her arms. This is a recent commission. Someone just wanted an octopus on top of her, instead of a rooster on a wind vane, they wanted an octopus. And so, fun little commissions. This one is, I guess I'm going to start talking a little bit about some of the work I've been doing with mythology, also blending, human-animal hybrids. I did a lot of work with some bears for a while. On a personal level, I just had a lot of dreams in that regard. Oops. Paula wanted to know, did you have to put the octopus on the roof? No. I just, I mocked it up. I had the cupola that the octopus is on. I made a mock-up of that, made sure everything would work, and then handed it off to the contractors, and they did it. So, yeah, so I don't know. I think part of the reason I don't like doing humans, like full humans, I do the animal things, is when you add clothes, when you add the faces, it gives it a context that is can sometimes stop you. It stops your imagination, which is fine in many contexts. But for me, I like to make things a little bit more transformative. I like people to bring themselves into it a little bit more. If there's a face, which is wonderful, and I do work with faces quite a bit, but sometimes we can get locked into that human connection, and I'd like to explore a little bit broader concepts. So this is one example of that. One thing I did that's really helped me loosen up was the Foundry folded, gosh, like 3 years ago, and it was wonderful because the KA finally called me up and they asked me if I wanted to take over their the head of their sculpture department, and I agreed. I thought it was great. They've been asking me for I've been asked for a while, off and on, and it seemed like a really good match. So since then, in the last few years, I have just I feel blossomed as an artist. So this is me really getting back into ceramics and just mediums that I hadn't experienced before. Because you have bronze foundry, you just make bronze. It's what you do, and that's what I did. And it wasn't limiting. I did a lot, but now it's just like a whole new world. And so I've just been on creative overdrive since then. And I think part of that creative overdrive has been me digging deeper into mythology and the unconscious, and these animal human hybrids have really been a way for me to explore that. The rabbit, I was just doing a figure study for this one in particular. This is at the wood fire kiln up north. I was just doing a figure study, and then I was going through kind of a hard time that weekend or whatever. She didn't have a head; it was just the hips and the torso. And then I went to it and I just started making this rabbit head. It just came to me, and she had this attitude, the way she was looking, the way I made her, and it just had this confidence, and she was like looking back at me, and I was like, wow, she really just needed to be here. She had to be here. I feel like I didn't make it. She just made herself. And and that happens to me, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this, these artists, I mean, what happens. It's just sometimes a piece just is just born, and you just happen to be a little doula for that experience. So this is her, her dramatic self. And then I did quite a few pieces. I'll show a few of them here with the rabbit motif. And so I did a little bit of sort of like thought meditation on the rabbit, and like why it came, and what it had to say, what it had to say to me in particular. Excuse me. There's something about the rabbit that is, in mythology and myth, rabbits are luminal. They're liminal creatures, which I think is really interesting. They live in that space, and they exist primarily in that space between night and day. They're more active during the morning and at dusk. They're also subterranean as well. I mean, they live below the earth and above the earth as well. And so the rabbit myth is one of those creatures that is what I would consider a messenger for the unconscious. They go to those deep spots, those deep places internally, and they bring back messages. And I think that's why I've been doing these rabbits. I don't really have an intention initially. I just try to let it go and let them become what they want to be. This one is knitting a little pink hat, and when she was created, I knew exactly who she was. To me, this is this creature that is speaking about power. You know, she's speaking about power and privilege. Again, I mentioned earlier, I like to work with contrasts, and she's contrast, and she's everything. You know, she's very heavy. You know, she's the heavy, the hips and everything. She's got this weight, but then there's a delicacy to her hands, to her neck, to her head. And so, as a sculptor, when you work with contrasts, it keeps your brain moving. It keeps the viewer's brain moving. And I think that's interesting. It keeps a dialogue going. You can never really settle on what she is. And I like playing with that. Because that's important, especially to the subject of this piece in particular. I think, you know, to me, this is about privilege. She's sitting there with her legs crossed. She's very open. She has her ears facing you. She's looking directly at you. And she's very comfortable, and she's confronting you. So initially, when I was going to make her, this is a maquette. Initially, when I was going to make her in her primitive chair, she was going to be sitting on a folded copy of the obituary for Emmett Till. It'd be sort of like folded and put away and tucked underneath her. And I figured that was enough of a conversation starter. I wasn't going to get too direct about it, but I think the viewer could probably take. I have a lot of complicated feelings about it. I don't necessarily want to project it onto this piece because I think it's up to the viewer. But it was definitely a powerful piece for me to put out there. So, this is another example that in that rabbit series. In this one, going back to that rabbit in liminal space, rabbits, when they're in this pose, and this is they call it like a prayer pose, because the rabbits sometimes, like when they're resting, they'll kind of hunch over, and their little paws will be in front of them, and their paws will be together, almost like they're praying. And so I made this this house. You know, it's a house, it's a home. It's comforting, it's warm, but it also has the pointed top like a church. So there is that aspect that is ascending towards the heavens. And then underneath, there's the roots that I had gathered and put underneath. And so this rabbit is in that space between the heavens and between the earth, resting in that space. She's transforming. There's aspects to this rabbit. The feet are human, and the hands are becoming a little bit more human. So yeah, to me, she's like I said, a messenger from the unconscious. And you can't see in this picture, her eyes are open, and there is a third eye in the middle opening, also representing the opening of the unconscious. And again, you know, she's rabbit and human. There's masculine and feminine both involved in the physiognomy of her. So, and again, blending a lot of elements together. Playing a little bit with the religious motif. She's almost like I would say like Venus, the Venus coming in on the shell. Is it Botticelli? Forgive my bad art history. So the waves of her birth. Also, you know, a little bit of the Jesus pose in there. So I want a little bit of that religious significance, you know, kind of going back to the rabbit and Easter, birth, you know, because rabbits are also a symbol of birth. So I wanted that feminine, but I also wanted to kind of put a little bit of the masculine in there. So she's got a little chest hair, and so kind of playing with iconography a little bit more with, again, with this rabbit form. This is pit fired in my backyard, pit fired ceramic. Again, I can't get away from fire, you know, pouring 2,000 degree bronze for 20 years does something to a man. So this is just a piece of cypress. It was just a log that was carved, power carved with a angle grinder. Again, finding the shapes, and I'm a figure sculptor, so it always comes back to the figures. You can see not intentionally, but it's just what I do automatically. Finding the way the wood wants to move, you know, moving when there's resistance, and then sort of like letting it be as unconscious as anything else. So this is, you know, I carve it that way. And then what I do with this is I'll hit it with a torch, burn it pretty intensely, and then get fissures in the wood. The wood will start to split along certain fissures. Sometimes I'll accentuate that if it calls for it. Sometimes I'll drill down into it and then really hit the torch inside the holes, burn it out, and just see where the fire wants to go. You know, sometimes the fire wants to go in certain patterns. The fire will soften the wood and it brings out these textures in the grain. And so you get this topographic sort of quality with certain woods. So it's really nice exploring the limitations and finding out what the wood wants to do once it's pushed to these extremes. So there's a way to sort of push the work and then sort of soften it back at the same time. So, you know, you can see in here where the fissures start to work. As you can see a fissure start, if you put more heat in there, you can really open up the wood that way using heat. Yeah, and this isn't stained. This is just the natural quality of the wood. This is just lacquered. These beautiful colors came out. So, you know, these are some pieces I did, you know, based on some what's called like the Central African power figures called Nsiki, where, you know, they would be sort of like repositories in the center of the a village where people would kind of go and you know, say prayers, give offerings to, and these figures would hey buddy, yeah. Anyway, so that's you know, that's basically what these figures are for me. You know, sort of almost spiritual forms. And so this little guy here is, you know, one of Kirk's pieces, the kids in the park. It was really nice for me. What's been wonderful for me working at the KA, engaging with people, engaging with students. I feel like it's come full circle. I bought the foundry that Kirk, which I didn't mention, Kirk Newman started the foundry that I worked at back in the 80s. Kirk was getting his bronze cast in Detroit. He wanted something closer. So Bill and Carla, under his tutelage, really put this place together. And I apprenticed there. And when I bought the foundry, when I owned the foundry, Kirk's door to his studio was right next to ours, and we shared a door. So Kirk would pop in and deliver his wisdom. We talk, you know, come in and talk about his work. He would talk about my work, and so he became a real mentor for me. So coming to the Kirk Newman Art School, being able to run for a little while I'm there, the department that he started, just means the world to me. So it was a real honor for me to be able to refinish his pieces, because I just think he's such an amazing sculptor. His subtlety, his understanding of form is just phenomenal. So that's been it's been great. And I love the fact that so many people in this community, because so much of the work I do, you know, it tries to be community oriented. And I love the fact that people in this community, I mean, a lot of them are literally these kids growing up. So, you know, I appreciate being a part of that connection. So the last pieces I'll leave you with, the work I've been doing, and I was really getting heavily into it before the lockdown, before the whole COVID thing, was working towards funereal art. So I have a practice, Death Arts, it's called, and I'm doing work with a lot of people locally in the community who are in sort of like the Green Burial movement, more of a modern, different like home burials, home funerals, home burials, home funerals. And then the work I'm doing is making like funereal urns, shrouds, that sort of thing. So this is a wax prototype of an urn, and also a sage burner. This is also one in bronze. with a little receptacle on the top for burning sage, and there's a hatch on the bottom for ashes. These are clay, and so the idea of these are also for ashes of loved ones. The clay, while it's still leather hard, can be held in your hand and maybe shaped, put your thumbprint in it so you can hold on to it so it takes the shape of your hand. And then the ashes will be put inside so you can carry your loved one's ashes with you, or have your loved one hold the piece and shape it themselves. So yeah, so that's something I'm my next part of my journey. And that's all I have.
Brent, you put a few questions in the chat.
Yeah. Paula wanted to know if I made it a seated woman in the Where We Stand exhibition. Yes, I did. She was seated with her Indian style, or crisscross applesauce, the hair swirling around and her hand up in the air. That was my work. I didn't have a good. I have no good pictures of her because she's a really hard one to photograph. But she's probably one of my favorite pieces. So, yeah.
If I could just ask a question about your creative process. I was thinking particularly the more realistic works. Do you start at all with pencils or paper sketches or drawings, or do you immediately go to some 3D other medium?
No, I draw a lot. I don't draw nearly as much as I should or used to. Yeah, my drawing skills have, they've dropped off significantly just because I don't spend as much time with it. It's one of those things. But mostly, I'll draw to get an idea, a rough idea. But really, most of the work is I work directly in material.
And that's clay, like modeling type clay?
Yeah, plasticine clay primarily. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it depends on the piece. Smaller pieces. Yeah, it just depends on the piece. But yeah, plasticine clay is usually the best one to work with for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sharon wanted to know, was I moving into these next stages of my work before the pandemic? How much has the pandemic shaped my recent interests? Quite a bit. Definitely, we were literally getting ready for a festival, like a Rethinking Mortality Festival. Literally, like when they started closing down all the business, we had everything planned for a festival at Old Dog, doing altars and like a group community altar of grieving, like putting up people's their deceased loved ones, memorializing, giving testimonials and poetry. So that got shut down, but we look forward to having it again soon, for sure. We were having regular meetings as well, for people to come in and have like community talks about death and afterlife thoughts, or end of life thoughts. But yeah, we did a few online activities, Zoom meetings, but they sort of fell off. So we look forward to starting that up again soon.
Hi, I wonder if this is Sharon. Can I ask you another question, Brent?
Yeah, of course. Hey, Sharon.
Hey, really love seeing the span of your works. It's so fascinating. I've seen a bit of what you've done in the studio, and really feel fortunate to have taken a class with you. So I'm really curious about the use of natural materials, and you had that in the clay or the urn prototype, and you have the sage in those recent pieces, but also in your rabbit pieces you have the twigs and the structure that's offered by those natural elements. And I'm just wondering if you play with that as part of that expression, or is that more kind of, I'm not sure incidental is the right word, but is it less maybe less intentional than the main figure that you're working with? I'm just curious about that, because I love the natural materials, as you know.
Yeah, me too. I've been moving more and more into it. So it's definitely something like the ceramic work I've been doing. I've been trying to work with more natural pigments. hopefully I'll be doing some classes out at our class out at Oxbow this summer, and with bronze casting. And I really would like to work with, maybe casting some natural elements into, transferring that into metal. So yeah, that is definitely where my heart is right now. Is just trying to get more back into the natural world and express it, and like that rabbit, sort of bringing it forth, So. We'll
Thank
see.
you. It's great talk.
Shirley asked, is the mortality event public?
It will be, yes. Yeah. Like I said, it was a public event. But when things start opening up back up again, it will be a public event as well. It was going to be at the Old Dog Tavern. We also had one scheduled for the summer at Apple Farms, which is down at Three Rivers, kind of a retreat area down there. So yeah, we'll do things again. We're in conversations right now about making things another virtual sort of gathering. So I'll let everyone know. And Joan, I haven't heard of Uncle Wiggily, but I'll look him up, the illustrator. Oh wow, I just missed all these.
Joan,
Yeah.
you're on mute. Sorry, Joan, you're still muted.
Okay. His works were done, it's a book, and he's a gentleman rabbit, and it is incredible. The rabbit, there are only several illustrations in each book, and they're all about being a good person, but the rabbit is just reminded me, so I had to go dig them out of my library. They're collector's items, I think, but anyway, it was written by Howard Garis, Garis, and the illustrator was Elmer, like I put in the note, the chat. So anyway, there's some, your creative mind is wonderful.
Thanks, Joan. I'll check that out. I appreciate it.
One other note about Uncle Wiggily, it was a children's game that we played growing up, like Candyland or something like that is today.
Yes.
It was a favorite when I was growing up. My family played it all the time.
Yes, and I had seen that available, but there's nothing of late, probably, I don't think for a long time, anything about him. He is kind of a lesson giver. He does nice stories, short stories.
Debbie mentioned, so glad you brought up Death Arts. I'm still grieving the loss of that event, but I know that they're still there. It's still there in the future. Given the season of death we've been in this pandemic, there will be such a need for healing after this, the passing of the angel of death. And I couldn't agree more, Debbie. So, this is a time for grieving for a lot of things. We've had a lot of loss, just not with, obviously through our own encounters with it and with COVID, and with the loss of a certain maybe culture that we thought we had that is going through some pretty extreme changes. So I think we're all grieving a lot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you again, hopefully sooner than later.
I remember reading about the Death Arts Festival, and I remember really looking forward to it. So I'll look forward to it again. Well, Brent, this has been incredible. Everyone has been so inspired and engaged with what you have had to share with us today. And we are so thankful that you took time out of your schedule to speak with us, to share your work with us, to tell us about your inspiration and your thought processes and how you work. And we are really going to look forward to continuing to have you as part of the Kirk Newman Art School and the Kalamazoo Institute of Arts, and hopefully have you talk with us again someday. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone for coming, and thank you so much, Brent.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I really appreciate this. It's been great. Thanks, Jessica.
And I would like to maybe take a picture of an illustration. That way you wouldn't have to do a lot of digging, and I'll just figure out where to get that to you.
Okay, that sounds good. I appreciate it.
Well, amazing. Thanks again to everybody. And I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting for all and wish everybody a happy Tuesday and a happy rest of your week. And hope to see some of you next week at ArtBreak with Deborah Matson. Thanks again, Brent.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. That's cool.
Thank you.